Hi guys, you catch me on a Saturday morning. I'm just trying to work out how to get my spares rather, on the back of the tailgate. So I've opted to go for one because of the weight, because it's about 130, 140 kilos in weight. But I also want it so it's optional to carry two if I have to, because I've got 6 altogether. It'd be nice to take them if I need to. So what I'm doing here is just trying to work out if I put the 2 supports that you can see over there for the center wheel, then they can, the left hand one can be used for the left hand wheel if I put another support on the tailgate there to match the other ones. So it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. I can get 2 wheels side by side or one in the center using the same actual platforms, if that makes sense. This is just a mock-up, but I think it's going to work so long as I put those support brackets level with the bottom of the tire, if that makes sense. So the tire doesn't sit in a cradle, it sits on the cradle, and that way it's more likely feasible to get the other tires on either side. So these are just tacked up, ready to weld. These plates are going to go on the actual tailgate. I'm going to measure them up now, keep that measurement, and transfer that onto the tailgate. Afternoon. I am now experimenting with where to put the spares on. So I've rigged my faithful engine hoist and counterbalanced in to take the weight of the tire and the wheel. So what I'm checking for now is its angle. So I quite like the fact that it's angled back like that. I'm also checking for the 60% rule. So I've double checked using my plumb line. My bolt in line with the center point of the axle right there, and the mark happens to be right here. And when I measure that, it is literally on the money. I can't believe it. And in fact, when it goes up a little bit more and closer to the tailgate, it's actually going to be about 20 mil short of the max, which is superb. Be well within legalities, which is great. I mean, I anticipated this obviously when I built the box, but you never can tell when you start putting things together how it's going to pan out. So from a distance, I don't know if you can see that, just sun in the way, it looks pretty good where it is, and I like the way it's leaning in, because then it's leaning towards the truck rather than the opposite. And to mitigate any issues when you get flats, because once you get a flat, the tire changes shape a little bit and you're never going to get it quite exactly where you want it. So the clamp will be just a general clamping mechanism that will hold. So it'll be welded in there, and then it's going to be clamped on like that, and then 2 bolts in the center slightly away from the edges, so it doesn't have to be perfectly mounted for it to bolt on, even though we've got a plate underneath which will help mount it. So that's the plan. it's on, but not quite how I envisaged. This gap here has appeared because I relied on this plate being level, and obviously it's not. So I've got to have a weld gap down the bottom here, and down here, which I'm going to have to sort of fill. But actually, when I look at this, there's a bow in this, and that's probably why. So now it's square to this, actually slightly leaning back, so it makes sure the tire stays on. Same with this one, and they're almost equidistant from front to back. This one's about 3 mil wider at the end, which is good, because it means the wheel will slide off quite easily when I need to get it off after unclamping it. So I'm relatively happy with that. It looks reasonably square to the uprights on here, not these big ones, and I think it's going to be alright. So I'm going to tack it a bit more and then get the wheel on, and then see what it looks like with the wheel on. If I'm happy with that, I'll weld the whole thing. That looks pretty good. It's only semi-tacked in, but yeah, it fits nicely between the stanchions. It's flat against the actual tilt tray. It's nice and flat there, nice and flat here, nice and centered there as well. Probably a little bit that way compared to the side, barely. It's pretty spot on. And it happens to sit almost in that cross member where it crosses, so that'd be great for the clamp. And from the side, it looks pretty good too. So I'm really happy with that. Obviously, when I carry the two wheels at the same time, they will tilt back a little bit, but because this is at an angle, it's not really going to matter. I mean, the cradle is specifically made for the actual single wheel. When I carry that one and this one either side, they'll meet somewhere in the middle, and I've calculated that should, with another one of these here, I will make it as substantial though, because it won't be used on a regular basis. And yeah, try and finish off this weld, but I might make some noise while I can. Make the rear the locking mechanism that's going to go in there, and it's basically just a clamp. I'm not going to use the holes of the wheel. I think that's too restricted, and if I have a flap it will move, and I'd rather not put all the weight on a bolt. That's why it's cradled, and this is basically just to clamp it against the actual lift ramp. And it looks pretty good from here too. You can see without the sun in the way. That sun's strong. There we go. Not too high either. Alright, trying for a drink and then carry on. welded in. That should be plenty. It's a bit splattery, not sure why. That should be good to go. All right, that looks pretty damn good, I say so myself. That bolt there is just not quite centered, so it catches on the socket, so I may have to make another one of these that is a bit bigger, but we'll see. This one's fine, but that's in tight. There's a bit of a gap there because I trimmed this down, if you remember, and I did that because I wanted to pull on the rubber of the tire, and I might put some rubber on these to stop them scratching the wheel too much. I think I've got about 10 mil in there, maybe just a bit less, which will act as a little bit of a cushion without pulling it too hard, because I only tacked that bracket in. That looks pretty damn good. I'm very happy with that. Gap's still good there, it's resting on it nicely. And gap's good here, and that is solid. Yep. All right, just got to weld it all up and we're done. Just got to figure out a way of getting it off the actual tailgate. Alright, looks good. So I don't do much talking because it's too much noise. So I've put the tube in there and there. There's the 3mm wall tube, so it's quite chunky. And this is where, this is upside down, so this is be attached to the chain. That'll be attached to the pulley, and that will be attached to the tailgate. So I'm going to use what was my old experiment with the rolling on and off sort of slide on camper trailer thought that I had. I modified these, if you remember, in my past videos to accept a mechanism and a hydraulic thing, and anyway, that all is in the past. Instead of wasting them, I'm going to use these brackets, cut them up, and they're going to go either side of that bush there. I made one initially to go in there, but I felt that was too narrow, even though all the stress on this is pushing against the actual ramp, not pulling it out, so there's no tension on it, it's just compression, so this will take all the weight, no problem. So I've beveled the back of the plates that are going to hold the actual wishbone onto the lift bed thing. This is what it looks like. So these have been cut to size, and basically they're going to go in there, and that goes through there. And the idea is that I weld them from the back. So that goes like that, and there'll be no visible welds on the outside unless I absolutely have to. So they're going on the back like that, and I'll bevel these a bit more and put a bead of weld around there and then clean it up, and that should be that one done. Hopefully they're as level as I can get it. I might put a shim under there just to make sure, yeah, and get those done before. There's 4 of them, because if you remember, I'm making it so that I can have 2 tires on there, or just the one in the middle, and they're all going to use the same wishbone to do that. Alright, so let's get these welded. So these are nicely beveled, ready to be welded. So we've got another 3 pairs. I've welded the other one, so although I didn't want to put any tacks on the outside, I had to make sure I got it level. So that's what it looks like, and then I'll clean these up later on. So we are going to now assemble one using the same method I used here. Three and 4. Alright, so what I'm going to do is clean them up and give them a spray with some gal, and then hopefully we'll be ready to put them on the tailgate at some point. You can see that the wishbone at the top and the pulley is slightly forward of the tire, in other words further back. The idea behind this is that as the chain pulls the tension on the weight of the tire, it naturally wants to slide off the hangers at the bottom or the cradle. Not by too much, it's just a very subtle movement, because obviously putting it on will be the reverse, but it's easily pushed by hand once it's on the cradle. In this clip you can see that the wishbone now has been moved to the left hand side, so it's above the center of where the left hand wheel would be, so it's no longer in the center, and now I'm standing on at the top of the ladder is near where the wishbone will be mounted on the right hand side, and I'm just welding those mounting rings or plates in place. And here I'm just removing the wishbone and transferring it from one section to the next, so from the far left, then to the middle, and then to the far right, just to make sure they all fit, because obviously each mounting point has to be perfect distance apart to accept the wishbone in each specific spot.